Hi, I'm Audrey. I'm going to show you how to make perfect peanut brittle every time. You'll need 1 cup of light corn syrup. I like to use Griffin's because it's made in Oklahoma. Also 1 cup of white granulated sugar and 2 cups of raw peanuts. I like to use the white blanched peanuts without the skin. At the end of cooking time, you'll need a heaping teaspoon of baking soda. Be sure to wait till the end. I like to use a 12-inch heavy skillet. I also like to use a silicone spatula that's good heat tested to 400 degrees generally, a digital thermometer to make sure that it has cooked long enough that it's reached the hard ball stage. And be sure before you start cooking, you get your cookie sheet ready, already lined with foil, and do not put butter or anything on it. It will not stick. First, I put in the light corn syrup. Then a cup of white syrup, white sugar. I go ahead and start the burner, and I set mine at 4 on a 10 scale for heat out of 10. I go ahead and heat this up and get it all dissolved. Just makes for easier stirring later. And then as soon as this gets dissolved and ready, I add the raw peanuts. This is something you don't want to walk away from. It needs to be monitored all the time. You don't have to stir it all the time, but you're stirring fairly often once it gets going to make sure that you don't scorch it on the bottom. You use a nice heavy skillet to be sure you've got even heat throughout during the cooking time. Two cups of raw peanuts. As I say, I like to use the blanched peanuts because if you buy the peanuts that have the skin left on them, when you break the brittle apart, the peanuts tend to fall out away from the candy. And so if you use the type that doesn't have the shell or the skin still on the peanuts, then it sticks nicely to the peanuts and you don't lose a lot of your peanuts when you try to break it apart. And we'll just let that start cooking. And after it starts boiling, we will stir fairly often, say every 30 seconds to a minute. Toward the end, you're almost stirring continuously. When I cook peanut brittle for the holidays, I like to make plenty to give away to family and friends. So while the first batch was cooking and getting going, and I hope you can see that it is getting golden brown and coming along very nicely. While that was coming along, I went ahead and started my second batch because when I make peanut brittle, I'll make 5 or 6 batches at one time. And I keep one batch going, start the next. When I'm ready to take it up, then the other one is coming and cooking and doing great. Okay, now I'm testing. When I test the temperature, I like to pull the trigger and move it around to different spots so I can see how all of it is coming along. And right now we're at 288. It needs to get up to at least 300. A little hotter is not a problem as long as you're not burning it. So we're getting very, very close. I stir often at this point. On your second batch, you start out with not having to stir nearly as often, which is great, because then you can tend the first one that you started. And the first batch is coming along very well too. All right. We are getting there. When I go around, some of it is under 300 and some of it is just a little over. At any point I could pull the trigger right now and it's going to be wonderful peanut brittle. I just like to be sure that it's plenty done, because that's the beauty of my peanut brittle, is that it does not stick to your teeth. Lots of people I've talked to said they don't like peanut brittle because it, pulls out fillings and it's hard to get out of your teeth. Believe me, you cook it long enough, you're not going to have that problem. And it's going to be fantastic. They're going to love it. Okay, I think we are doing great here, because virtually everything is at least around 310. So that's wonderful. Now we'll take the baking soda. It is a heaping teaspoon of baking soda. Turn out your fire. Always be very, very careful when you are stirring this up. You have to do it quickly, but goodness, do not let any of it come out of that pan and land on you, because you'll have third-degree burns. So just try to get all of this stirred in nicely so it's all nice and even. I've got my cookie sheet all ready to go here, and we're going to pour it into the pan. Set your pan to the side, and don't put water in it until it kind of cools. And you always, if you're on a hot pan, be sure that you start the water from the edge of the skillet and work in. Otherwise, you'll tend to make that pan warp on you, and you don't want that. You quickly spread it out. I like to spread it out so it's just one layer of peanuts everywhere. And by spreading it out, you kind of get rid of the bubbles rising. And so you have a nice pan of peanut brittle. So, on the pan, the cleanup is so easy. You take it to the sink and start from the edges. Start water at an edge and let it start cooling off. And then go ahead and fill with water and just let it sit, because it melts. and it's a super easy cleanup. And I have my second batch still going here and ready for the next. You do not attempt to do anything with this until it absolutely completely cools. When it cools completely, we'll show you how to break it apart and set it up to eat, give away, and enjoy. The peanut brittle has cooled about probably 30 minutes now. My husband jumped the gun just a little because he couldn't wait. He thought it smelled so wonderful. So he tore my foil just a little, getting out that first piece. But it's ready to go. And you just start easily breaking it apart right here. And since I use the blanched peanuts, it holds together really, really well. And it's not even sticky on my hands breaking it. It's working wonderfully. I've got some of my tins ready to go. And I line mine with either wax paper or parchment paper. I put parchment paper this time. And I just set the tin on top of the parchment paper, draw a little line, cut it out so it fits nicely in the bottom. And so you can see I have some parchment paper over here a little bit all cut out of. So then you've got your candy all ready to put in tins and send it out on its destination, or just put it out on the coffee table or bar, ready to eat whenever you're ready. Now, if the weather is moist, it could form beads, especially in the summertime. You don't have to worry about it in the wintertime because we're inside with central heating, so everything's wonderful. If you do this in the summertime, be sure to always put it in some type of a tin and keep the lid closed, and that way it won't form moisture beads on it when it sits. But it's a beautiful candy to use in the wintertime, that's for sure.